Okay, so we've got this really lovely lakeside landscape tonight. I just thought, you know what, September is about kind of getting back into routines, isn't it? Well, not for everybody, but for quite a lot of people, and just having just time kind of just calming down after a busy summer. So yeah, I just thought this kind of spoke of reflection and just kind of getting back down to kind of chilling out for the autumn. So it's really, really beautiful. And also we still really our kind of gardens and everything are still right out in summer, with all our flowers and everything. So I thought like we won't go straight into autumn. So some nice colours here, some nice all of these pictures on here are lovely. So whichever one you're doing, whether you're doing this one or this one, or we've got one of your own or this one, there's some little nods to autumn in there, but then we've got some really lovely colours and reflections that will help us do a bit of practice with water and things like that as well, and skies, and it's just really lovely. So the first thing I would say, if you're working in acrylics anyway, or pastels actually, is we'll just use like a layered approach to kind of build this up. So we're not going to pop all of this, any of these trees on to start with, because we'll need to get the paint behind it first of all. So I'm going to ignore all that. I'm going to just break up the page. So I'm going to look at, obviously this is kind of just over halfway. And put that just over halfway where the top of this water's edge. But you can make it, you can change it to not. You can even use a ruler as well. Sometimes you don't have to, but sometimes to get the edge of the water is quite difficult. I'm just doing that. And if you do it really lightly, I'll make it slightly darker so you can see it. If you're working in pastel, you can just do that slightly with a different coloured pastel rather than a pencil. And then I am going to just draw in just a few of these mountains coming up the side. But again, they don't have to be perfect. You can kind of almost make up your own as well. This isn't actually in the Lake District. It's really lovely, isn't it? I've got a few of these with from like Coniston Water, and I think one might have been Windermere, Ambleside. They're all over. Just really beautiful. We do have a lot of these on the lakeside. They're just gorgeous, aren't they? And then I'm just going to pop this mountain that's coming at the back, just with a few bumps in it. And that's pretty much all I'll do for mapping out there, because obviously we've got a lot going on in the sky here we'll need to think about this time. And then let's have these here. And then obviously I'm just separating this the lake from the beach here. And then if you have a little look at whereabouts this particular, and this depends, it doesn't matter which pier you're doing. So what we would do with the pier anyway is obviously I'm looking to see how wide it is. So you want your near point. So it doesn't matter which one you're doing, whether you're doing that one or this one or the other one. All you've got to work out is whereabouts at the bottom of the page it starts. So like this one, that's halfway. And if you use your halfway mark as a guide, you can see that this one actually starts almost halfway across down here. This one takes up a huge amount of the paper, so you can just use that, just scale up to see how much it is. This one I've got here, I'm looking like that's halfway, I think. That's halfway. It's almost pretty much in the middle, isn't it, the centre? And then I'm looking, you know, so you're pretty much, these are like quarter in, aren't they? You know, quarter, more or less. So we can look at kind of where midpoint is. You can even put a little mark on your paper if you want. And then look at whereabouts it's starting from on each side. There we go. And whereabouts we are finishing. So pretty much near the water's edge there. That's the mid part. And I think that came on just a bit further over. So I'm just looking proportionally, really. So then when obviously we can be a little bit out with it, but a great thing to do is just to look at the angle. You can pretty much look at that there, and the same again here. So you can move that across so that if it is just a bit out, you can move things about. So I'm making this slightly wider at the top here, because it wants to be double that. And again, it'll be bigger again if you're working on A4. So I'm working on A5, which is about twice the size of this, which makes sense there. So if you're going bigger again on A4, then you'll scale up again. So I can put these on, or these can go on afterwards. It's entirely up to you. I put them on this morning just because they're just to see where they started and finished. And then the key with these is, if you look, the end of the pier, it stands upright. It's a vertical, straight down line, whereas we think it kind of goes out, it doesn't. So I'm just looking at the fact it's kind of halfway across this lake. I'm just going to pop a mark of where I want it to start and where I want it to end. And then I'm just going to do a line straight up. Same on here. And then we'll just join that up. And again, if you're not sure about the angle, then just double check like that. Like that. And that helps, to get all of those in proportion. Because what we've got here is we're thinking about vanishing point, well, not vanishing points, but where, the smallest point is and things like that, how it gets smaller and how we can get that sense of distance in our painting, which is what we can do in a minute. And that's it in terms of mapping out. I've got a little bit of tester paper, which is going to be quite important. So I'm going to work sky down. I think if you're working in pastel, I would say work from the top down as well, just because you're not going to smudge the bottom when you're working on it. So I've just got my little palette pad here. So what I want to think about are all these skies. Depending on the one that you do and the one that you pick, obviously you'll be able to, what we have to do is strip that sky back and look in and think what colour comes at the back of everything. And you'll find in certain areas, certain colours, look different. So like this one, it's obvious that these really heavy clouds and then are over the top of the sky here. The heavy ones are on the top. That one's a mixture of kind of like got some light clouds over the top and then the dark one's kind of in the distance. This one's got the skies behind them. Obviously, there's quite a lot of cloud cover, whereas this one got a bit of sky poking through here and some kind of darker areas of, I think that's more cloud than sky, to be fair, over the top, and then deciding what comes first over there. But this still overlaps the blue. So we've got a bit of, what I can see is pinks and yellows and things like that in there. And then that cloud overlapping. And then this one is underneath, but this cloud is still overlapping here. So we've got to be really thinking about what we're putting on. So in terms of working in acrylics, I would just go with getting some of this background colouring first. I'm going to leave these clouds a little bit because obviously I want to pop those in over the top, but you can almost put the sky behind it if you want to, and then work the cloud over the top. It's up to you. So we're almost working in patches of colour. And I think with the clouds, the best thing to do is to use plenty of paint on there. Put plenty of paint on, and if it's a bit sticky, make sure it's wet enough that it will cover. Because what we can do is pop the bit in patches, but then we can blend the edges a little bit, which works really, really well. So, just got to decide, do you want to use a flat brush? Do you want to use a round brush? It's entirely up to you. Flat brushes give a good coverage. But again, as long as you've got a nice big enough round brush to cover so that it's not leaving too many marks in. Unless you want the marks in, and that's a whole different story, then, go ahead with a smaller, your smaller brush or whatever. With the pastels, just got to be careful, and the paint to some extent, not to blend too much like a pinky or a yellowy colour with a blue, because you'll end up with green in your sky. And the same with the pastels, you just need to blend near those other colours carefully. So I'm just looking at the colours in here, and the same for you. So we'll all see different things here. All of us will see these things very differently. In terms of getting this blue sky in first, we've got obviously lots of blues, which will make a very different feel creating when we're doing it. It'll be very different. So I'm going to pop a tiny bit of cerulean, but I'm not going to go for a cerulean sky because it's very turquoisey, and I don't want a real turquoise. But the ultramarine, for me earlier on when I tried it, was just a bit too flat. So I'm going to add a little bit of that to my ultramarine blue. And then I'm going to absolutely have some titanium white on there. Because it's great for mixing, especially when we've got a very muted palette, because what we have with the sea, sorry, the lake, is the colours reflected, but they're reflected quite pastely. So if we were doing bright summer, I'd say don't add lots of white to it, but because we're doing something that's quite muted, it helps actually make that quite a pastel feel. So so that's what we're going to do. So I'm also thinking, whilst I've got my colours out, I'm going to pop some yellows on there. Now you can go for like a lemon yellow for the sky, or you can go for a Cajun yellow, which is a bit warmer. I think I've got, you know, there's different colours in there, isn't there? Or you can even go for a Naples yellow, which is a light yellow. It's more kind of got, it's more of a tint, I would say, Naples yellow. So you could have lemon yellow with white, or Naples yellow, just slightly lighter. I'm going to pop some Cajun yellow for further on when we've got this bit down here. And some pink. So I'm not going in, you could put a little bit of rose or something, but I'm just going for a warm red, Cajun red, to just get some of these pinks in here. Now, earlier, some people didn't see pink at all. They saw some other kind of purpley colours, and that's fine. I've always said this, you know, we all see things very, very differently, don't we? There we go. Getting off my fingers. Okay, so yeah, so I'm going to be testing as we go along, but again, one of the tips that's really helpful when you're using acrylics is make sure that those in between your colours are really twisted off, because you know, mixing those yellows and blues is going to give you, you know, not the colour you necessarily want. So have a little start. So I'm just going to look in there because that's the bit that's peeping through. Just going to make a nice colour. And again, as I said, if you can work fairly quickly on the sky, that really helps. So I'm just going to add a bit more, got some cerulean and some ultramarine there. But obviously it's going to be very bright at the minute, so I'm just going to add. Just going to add some white. Okay, so I'm going to add a little bit more cerulean to that just to warm up a little bit. But I don't fancy. But if you love cerulean blue, put that on. There we go. So I'm going to put it on nice and thickly like that. I'm just going to look at the patch whereabouts I think it is over here. So I'm not worrying too much about my brushwork to start with. It's nice and thick, so I can actually blend around. I mean, you can add more, you know, if you want a little bit more blue through the sky. Over here. Just lift that up slightly. So where that, I'm kind of doing this on purpose. So where that cloud is, this grayer one, I'm popping this in just because I want to, it might give my clouds a little bit more depth. And also it just gives me a reminder of where I'm not to go, because that's tempting, isn't it, to go over, go over the wrong bit and get those in. So I'm kind of just mapping those clouds out a little bit, but not too much, because obviously they do go over the top, so I will go over the top of the other. It's just really more of a marker for the eye. And that's gone on quite thick as that paint. You can see the texture in it actually, when I'm doing it, because now when I go in, I can mix up a bit the other around it. So it's deciding, isn't it, what comes next. So when I'm looking here, we've got this lovely kind of, well, that's what I see it as pink, but you might see it as more yellow or more purpley. You can always pop a bit of rose tint in there rather than a red or something like that. See what happens. I'm just going to go for a bit of this yellow, this light yellow, or you could use lemon yellow, white, and a white. And I'm just going to put a tiniest bit of this Cajun red, which is more of a warm red, because I just want kind of a peachy pink. And I'm just going to keep adding. I'm going to keep adding until I'm happy with the colour that I've chosen. Okay. That is quite warm. I might, because it's even quite pastel over here, so I might even just pop a bit of a tint of white in there for that side. Okay. So it's all about going with what you think. So I'm going to add a tiny bit more white as I come down near the horizon down here. And this obviously will go behind all the trees. So again, just put plenty on. Somebody was saying today, do I put lots on? Do I put it on really thinly? I said, actually, if you do it the opposite and load it up and have it so it moves, then you'll get rid of your marks as well. So just kind of comes down here. Just coming behind, isn't it? Behind these trees. And what happens once we put the trees over, it all changes anyway. I think you'll really enjoy just having a go. Actually. So what I am going to do over here now is get this light colour in. I've got this colour that I've got on my palette that I can use in the cloud area, but those clouds overlap this bright area that comes behind. So I'm looking for this bright area. This is why we have like some ideas about like how we want to apply the paint, but every single painting is different because of the way one thing overlaps another. So you might, not kind of follow the rules really sometimes. You've got an idea of what you want to do, but it changes. So I'm just going to pop in so I'm going to pop in, I'm just mixing up here to show you what I'm doing, just mixing up kind of a brightish yellow. I can make it brighter as I go, but I'm just going to start with a base colour. And then I'm going to have a go at getting this in here, this big area. Just behind it. And again, it's coming on, this is on fairly thickly. And I'm putting it on fairly thickly, one that's not going to dry too fast, and I can keep blending in some of the bits that I've got. Bring it all the way across where I can see it. And then we can also add in some of the similar colours over the top and blend it without it becoming muddy, because they're, we've got some pinks and yellows are fine together. So just kind of weaving it through where I think it goes. You can always go over the other areas if you're not happy. And then this bit at the top here, which is really light. But I'm going to go in with the same colour that I've just used here. Really just so that we get those lights in. So nice, isn't it? Back to making lovely, beautiful marks on this paper. I'm going to pop some over this that I've just done. Some of that colour. Lighten it up a little bit in parts. So yeah, so keep popping it where you think you can see it coming through. It does take quite a bit of observation, doesn't it, actually? Because when you look, it's like, oh, it's there and it's there. Don't worry too much what's going on behind the branches, because those branches will cover it quite a bit. You know, quite a lot of this is covered. It's just, you know, getting some nice kind of colours through. And then, you know, you can start to add in that, you know, overlap the other colour as well that you've seen. I'm now going to try, I'm going to pop in some of these pinks I can see. So I'm going to make up a very similar colour to the one that I've just made up here. And there was red, white, and I'm going to pop a bit of Cajun yellow, which is slightly warmer. Just see what that comes out with, like on there. Okay, I'm quite happy with that. And again, I'm going to put this on quite thickly. Now, it doesn't matter now. That blue will have dried off enough, but this will still be damp, or the edge of this. So you can swish it round, you know, like just in a circular motion. Now, if you're doing this with pastel, you'll want to kind of just apply it and then just gently swish it over with your finger, very gently. So you're not kind of getting it all muddy. So all I'm doing now is just kind of popping over some of these like beautiful pinky bits that I can see that overlap this very bright cloud coming through. And again, you know, a lot of it's like kind of just jiggling your brush and seeing what kind of textures and effects you can get. So this almost comes over, but be careful there. I'm okay going over this bit of here, this bit of cloud, but I've just got to be a bit careful because some of that pink overlaps this darker cloud. So I'm going to pop this darker cloud in now. Although I might just use this pink up and bring it across a little bit underneath, so it kind of comes here. So you can still wiggle your brush and get nice effects on there. And just pull it across. You can even use the edge of a flat brush. That's another thing you can do. Beautiful, beautiful variegated skin. It's lovely, isn't it? Really nice when you start to get that brush on there. Really enjoyable. And then while I'm here on this bit, I am actually just going to go in with a really, you know, where the brightest areas are. I'm going to overlap that. You could just use white, or you can use a white and yellow tint. I think I'm going to use a tint because it's a bit harsh, just the white. Just kind of brighten up, not the whole of it, but just a few key areas there. I'm not going to really overwork it because a lot of this is going to change significantly once we start to put the bit at the bottom down. So nice to be back painting. Lovely. And then another bright here. I'm going to apply this here as well. Just in amongst some of this colour here. Let's pop that in. There we go. And then I'm going to go on to this cloud area here because it's holding, when things starting to hold you back, you need to look at it. So in terms of getting this colour, you can, if you've got a different blue and say an alizarian crimson, which is quite typical in the kits that we get. It's a really kind of like almost a purpley colour. Alizarian crimson, is that one I've got them here? I have to double check on there because they're so quite a bit different to my other set. Yeah, that's alizarian crimson, but they do sometimes, yeah, that's exactly the colour. It's more, it gives you that kind of more of a moody cloud. You could use your ultramarine blue as well, that's fine. But I'm going to mix it up a bit. I'm going to use a blue that's slightly darker. So I'm using the phthalo blue. Or you could use another blue that's a bit darker. And if you haven't, doesn't matter. Just use your ultramarine. It's just to try it out. Or you can even use a bit of purple actually. Not a warm purple, like with lots of red in it, but something more like a violet or something you could add instead. I'm just going to mix this up a little bit. I'll show you what I'm doing here. I'm going to get my alizarian crimson because alizarian crimson's got a very, it's a very blue-based red. And I'm just going to bring a little tiny bit of white in there. There we go. Put some alizarian crimson in. So just keep mixing it until you get a colour that you're happy with, that you think, oh yeah, I quite like that as cloud. I'm just going to try mine out. Okay. Still not, I don't want it really dark. I don't want a huge contrast with it because I'm just going to pop in. I might even pop a bit of this Naples yellow or yellow, tiny bit of a tint in there. There we go. More white. So I am making it not so huge contrast. So let's try that. Yeah, I'm happy with that one there. So just find the one that you think. So I'm just going to add a little bit more water so it goes on nice and smoothly. And I'm just going to try and add this into the middle. I think I might need some more crimson in there. There we go. It'll feel thick in the middle, that's fine. And then I'm just going to just the edges, just going to make them a little bit more fluffy. So I'm doing that trick again, making my brush, making it all kind of round, like fluffy. And then I can add in some other colours as well. So I'm going to bring this out a little bit into the other colours, just so that it's not a big block. And because it's still damp, because I've got it on nice and thick, I can just kind of bring that out a little bit into the clouds. Same on this one here. There we go. So we're just kind of just breaking things up a little bit here. And popping it in wherever you want to put it. So there's some more. Okay, so I'm going to make it slightly thinner. So I've got the same colour. I just want a little bit coming over the top of these ones I've got on underneath. So that's why I'm thinning that right down now. So we get some, you know, much thinner clouds coming out here. And then I'll start to kind of drop some in. So that's obviously looking quite blotchy. And dry my brush off, but then I'm going to bring in some of these pinky colours, and they're almost like brushed over the top, aren't they? Just so you can see. So let's get some of that mixed up. So some white, some more red, Cadian red, yellow. And I'll pause in a moment. I'm going to glance in the sky a little bit. Pause and come and chat to everybody. Let's see how everyone's getting on with it. So here we go. I'm going in, I mean, you could really go in with a thinner brush, actually. I'm just using a similar one here, but so I'm just kind of pulling that down, dragging that down a little bit. And again, you know, pulling some of these lovely colours over the top because they're nice and thick and it's kind of dried up a little bit now. You can make those, you know, you can bring those misty bits. So that's how we kind of getting those clouds all get over here as well. There we go. So I'm not going to do much more to mine for the moment. I am going to pop in some of these bright colours I can see down the bottom. I am going to definitely have to go to a smaller brush for that. So down here we've got some nice brights. It's really nice with the sky if it's very muted to drop in some bright. So I'm literally going to drop in some of this Cadian yellow just as it is. It feels like, oh my gosh, can I do that? But yeah, absolutely. Absolutely we can. It does make a difference. You don't need loads. Just the odd little bit of colour here and there. There we go. And then any other, I'm just going to finish up here. Any other little bits of, you know, any kind of lighter bits or anything I'm missing. It's like this is across here. I need to make this a little bit more pink. You'll start to see bits once you do it. You'll think, oh yeah, I want to put a bit more of this in there, or I need to put a bit more in that. That's fine. But what I'm not going to do is get too hooked up on it because once we put the land in and the trees over, it'll change the look of the sky. So don't get too worried about it's not looking right. Often it doesn't at this stage anyway. So I'm just going to press pause there and see how you're getting on. There we go. So here we go. So just really excited to get into blocking in some of these, you know, some of these mountains at the back. And again, you can use whichever kind of brush you fancy. whether it's a thicker one or a thinner one. Obviously, a round brush, you can use it on its side, which is what I'm going to do, or a flat. I was using a flat this morning because I was working on a much bigger paper, and I find that better. Just make sure your water's clean, I would say, at this stage, because it can muddy up quite a lot. So I'm going to use a couple of colours here. I'm going to use brown, a dark brown. I've got a burnt umber, or you could use a raw umber or something. I'm also going to use that phthalo glue that I've already used. And the reason I'm doing that, these ones right in the distance, I think we've talked about this before, but basically dark colours recede and so do blue-based colours as well. Now, because we've got kind of browny colours at the front here, if I use the same brown here, it's almost going to feel like it's coming forwards at the same. So I'm going to keep this just brown and I'm going to add blue into this background just so it feels like it's going backwards a bit more. It's just a little trick. And the one right in the middle at the back, I'm just going to add more blue to that. And I'll test it just to make sure. So it's really, we've got a bit more, it's a bit too much blue in that. There we go. I'm just going to add a tiny touch of titanium white. Sorry, I thought it was under the camera. It's not there. And that's just for this one in the middle here. Because it's got a slight hint that there's a little bit of something hazy over the top there. But yeah, I want the one that's furthest back to be, because it's not the darkest one, but I want it to feel like it is going into the distance. There we go. And then these ones at the front, I still want that blue in, because I want this one at the brown at the front to be slightly different. So I'm going to go in now with these other ones. We don't want much detail in those at the back anyway, really, because this is where it will transform as well, the picture. Painting. In, just layering up these. And this is where it just really starts to transform, because, you know, our skies that we were quite like, oh, I'm not sure it's okay. Now, creates a lovely backdrop. I'm just going to block that on fairly quickly, really. On. So we now have that lovely silhouette. And again, it will change again once we put those trees and things over. So all I am going to do behind here, it looks like either there's some kind of mistiness or something. So I'm just going to take a bit of this blue that I do have left from earlier and just drop that in, kind of between. I don't know if it's between the hills or what, but so that when the tree's over the top, you do still see that little bit of light colour. I'm only doing it quite roughly because, again, we don't need too much detail in there. There we go. There we go. Right. So we have this beautiful lake now. So again, if you know, as we were just discussing, if anyone does have any colours left over, then you can, you can use those as a base or you can remix them because in the water, what you'll see, we get this quite new on this particular picture anyway, we get quite muted colours, and the reason is this very bright areas here. So really light areas tend to be reflected slightly darker, and darker areas tend to be reflected slightly lighter, which is what you can see actually here. So this is quite it's a less a more muted palette here. The only exception I'll say is in this one, where you've got this here, but that's also you've got this very dark, because that is a shadow. So the shadow always around the edge or directly underneath is always much darker. So that's why we get that. But and again here on this one where you've got shadow from the trees, it's dark there. So let's go with this. So again, there's some nice colours in there. So I'm going to go for a general one. Let's have a look. So I'm going to go for this. It's quite a few different colours, isn't there, over here? So maybe I'll do that's slightly lighter. This is kind of a bit more warm, where underneath where this yellow is. So I'm going to pop in the darks after. I'm going to go for a mid-tone. Let's go for a bit of Naples yellow. It's a good base. Or you could use lemon yellow and a bit of white. And pop a bit more of this pink in. Or you could use orange or something if you prefer. Right. More muted. So I'm going to try that on here. Okay, I'm happy with that. I'll just pop a tiny bit more pink in. And again, I've got plenty of paint here, mixing up plenty of paint. So I'm just going to go and kind of, I am going to use side to side. I'm going to create a few more lines in there because I can see that there are, but you don't have to. If you want it to really mill pond smooth, then that's fine. Just don't put, load up the paint. And I might need to put some of these colours over the top anyway. I'm just using my brush really to get the shape of some of the water in here. And then I'm going to add a little bit, and this is why I'm saying work quite quickly and thickly with your paint. What I'm going to do now is add a more muted tone of this colour up here to the water. So I'm going to put a little bit of the Cadian yellow and a bit of the Naples yellow in there as well. It's not quite as bright as that, but you can get a sense that there's a bit of colour coming in here. So around here. Move that through a little bit around the edge there. Get a little bit of it coming out this side, just a small part there. But again, you go with what colours you can see, because we all look at things differently. So, dab it off on a bit of tissue, like that. Let's get rid of all the paint on there. And then I'm going to go for kind of a muted blue over this side. So let's just try some colours for that colour over here. And I'm going to use it as well up here. I've noticed now I can see a bit of that pinky colour up there, so I'm going to go in and put some of that pinky colour in at the top, just on the horizon line there. And if it's difficult, you can always turn your paper around and draw it downwards rather than side to side. So I'm looking at that here, and I'm not going in with that's too too dark. So I'm going to actually go back to popping more, a bit more blue here. Go in with a tiny bit of this dark blue. And I'm going to pop a tint in there as well, because I want it to kind of, it knocks the colour down is what I would say. Just a little bit. Knock it down a bit more pale there. And then let's see, maybe I will even add this red in there. So it's got just a tiny touch of purple in it. I'll try that. And again, you know, it's just trying it out. So that was my cloud colour there. So this is why it's quite handy to have a swatch. And then I'm putting this one underneath, and you can see that that's lighter, which is how it would reflect here. So down here as well. You know, you can actually get those waves through if you want to. Just going to get some remarks through it. Maybe just pop a tiny bit more reddy colour in there. At the back, so it's a bit more perfume in it. Again, you know, it's our interpretation and what we see and the colours that we see. So that's the beauty of it. You know, and how we represent that as well with our brush strokes. What we see isn't what, you know, what other people see. I'm just going to pop it with a bit of a darker one through there. Just for a bit of contrast. And then I'm just going to pull out just quite a muted colour underneath there. I've got quite light in places. So I'm going to just go back into and give it a pink tinge. Because when it's over, when this tree is over the top, it's going to look very different anyway. There we go. So just kind of getting a base on, and then we can start to think about, you know, those lighter colours on top, which is what I'm going to do. So weaving in some brighter ones in here, and I'm going to go in. I'm not going to go in with just white because I can't see any white on there, but I am going to go in with a nice bright tint. With some Cadian yellow. I'm going to bring some of these brights into the water here. Because obviously we do finish off with the lights on top and the water. And then the same over here. Still need a kind of some of those little bit of areas of a bit lighter and reflect. reflecting some of those brighter colours, although again it's still a bit more muted, isn't it, than we have up here, so that's really light. So we've got a bit more muted colours on here. And again, you know, you can bring in all sorts of kind of shapes and linear lines, or you can keep it nice and straight. It's entirely up to you. I'm going to pop a few pinks in because I can see those now. I'm looking even more carefully. But again, you know, just because I see pink doesn't mean anyone else will see pink. It's whatever colours you can pop in that you can see yourself. So I'm going to leave that there now, that water, for the moment. I might just pop in just a couple of ripples here. And then concentrate on popping the decks again. It's going to change again once we've got that deck on there. And this is where, if you want, if it's easier to turn your paper around to do this, then that's fine. You know, you just turn it around and go across. So with this pier here, I'm going to go in with this lovely brown, take some of the brown off. Because if you really look at this pier here, we've got all sorts of colours. And again, once you start to look, you think, oh, it isn't just brown. We've got some areas that are darker, but there's all sorts of kind of, you might see yellows or pinks or blues or whatever. And the same with the other piers, there are different colours and textures in them. So I'm just going to take a bit of this tint. It's white and make a tint. Sorry, not a tint. It's making a tint by just putting brown in there. And I'm going to go in with that as just a base colour, and then I'm going to add lights and darks to it. What I will do, I'm just going to is go kind of as far out as I can. But what I'm going to try and do is create the shape, like not the shape, but create the texture by just of the planks by getting my brush strokes in across like that. Because it already then is, you know, you're already kind of making some of the creating some of the effect. And if you drag the paint anyway, you know, across the page on just the top tip of your brush, what it does is creates kind of a nice woody effect anyway, because you're moving, you're dragging that colour over. And then obviously there's one down the side as well, so I'm going to go in and move that colour all the way down the side, over the top of the ones I've just done. There is an extra plank on this particular pier that looks like that. I'm going to point that brush underneath my hand, really point it right back like that. It's a bit it just takes a bit of practice really, but it's quite nice. And then, you know, you can just kind of like just work out, you know, just work with those bits there. So we've got quite, you know, quite an effective pier there already. So really it's just, oops, I'll take my dark colour now and start to pop in anywhere that I think needs to be a bit darker, just kind of intermittently. Sometimes you get like the line between the planks, so you get the shadow cast. But again, I tend not to do a big thick long line because wood's quite natural and it makes it look a bit more natural if you do it a bit more of a broken line, if that makes sense. So I'm just going to get that in, and it makes it a little bit more, especially where you've got a pier that's quite worn, makes it feel, gives it that rustic feel a little bit. With those variegated colours where it is darker in places and lighter in others. Hmm. And then, then have a little look at the lighter colours in there. So I'm actually going to go for a bit of a peachy one. So I'm going to go back with my Cadian yellow because I've run out. Actually, not too messy, not too dark. And my red. Tiny tint. Okay, here. Okay, I'm happy with that matching there. So then you can just go, have a little look, see where you feel that peachy colour is, or whatever colour you decide to use, whatever your contrast is, your lighter one. I think if you're doing pastels on this, I would use some pastel pencils for this bit, maybe. Yeah, so just pop in some bits in, and then, if there's anything else like that's really much lighter that you can see on there, I'm just going to go for a bit brown, a bit of white tint there. So it's not as warm. I'm just going to pop in just that in just little tiny areas, maybe up the middle. Sometimes where you see, sometimes you get the light reflected on whereabouts the light coming from the sky is as well. I'm just adding a few of those lighter mix on this bit here's got it on the side. There we go. And then finish off, I'm just going to pop in where we put these, going straight down. Straight down in a row. In here. We've already drawn in some of it, makes it easy to do. So you still get the sense that there's fence post, but we don't want too much. I'm not putting anything else on there because it's going further out. So we don't want to, pop too much on there, too much information. And then there's just really the foreground. So we'll have a little look at that. Yeah, so we've got these here, which I'm going to pop on in a mo with the last two bits in a minute with getting these leaves in and then getting the last bit of trees. But we'll just take a pause there for a moment. See how you're getting on. Okay, so we'll have a little look at down here. Now, this particular one, I actually did think this was pebbles, but it's not. It's leaves, some of the autumn leaves actually on the floor. So what I'm going to do, like with these ones in the back here, because they're further away, I've dropped blue in. So now I'm quite comfortable using the brown here. So I'm just going to get some more brown. There we go. And I'm going to go in with say like really kind of a bit of a thicker brush than this, a round brush. I'll see what I've got. I did have one. I'll try that one I had this morning. It's quite big for this little paper, but we'll try it. So this is like a really thick round brush, this one. So I'm going to go in with that and just kind of dot it on. So I'm going to go in with my darkest colour and just create nice kind of thick texture. So I want it to be a little bit of a different texture to the to this, obviously, to the pier and also to the base. But I'm going to just go in and just get an edge here where, so that the edge of the bay is quite straight. This thick brush will just take it right over the edge if I'm not careful. So I'm just going to create a bit of an edge with a thinner brush that's got a bit more control with it. The same here at the side, actually. Same over this side. I'm just giving it a bit of an edge. Yeah, so I'm just going to go in, and it's darker, obviously further away though, because it's more in the shade. I'm really just going to kind of dab it on so we get, whoops, I'm hitting the camera there with my long handle. Just kind of get that in where it's really dark. What else have we got there? Let's have a look. And then wherever else there are a few other little kind of shady, big shady areas, I'm going to pop those in as well. Just leave it a few gaps. And then in between, I'm just going to go in actually with some of those pinky colours. I'm going to make some of that up again. Just move this up here. Oops. And the pinky and the yellow. And some tint of white actually. A bit more yellow. A bit more yellow again. You can continue to test these colours if you want to. So I'm just going to just dab off the end of this. It might get a little bit muddy, but I kind of want it to show through the other colour anyway. I don't want lots of it. So I'm quite happy to have it in amongst the brown paint. So it's not, doesn't get too much of it. And then I can go back in with the brown as well and break up any that are too bit patchy. You know, and you can pop other colours in here as well. There we go. And then I'm just quite happy with that, to be fair. Just kind of just getting that bit of texture in there. And then I will just go in with the very last bits doing the tree. So I'm going to definitely go for a thinner brush though. And I'm going to go in and just really start to look at these branches. So I'm going to go in just with my nice dark brown. If it's not dark enough, then I'm just going to add because it's more of a silhouette. I'm just going to add some of that dark blue or some ultramarine blue. I'll just pop some of that in and I've got it here. Just so it really feels more silhouette-y and it's dark enough. And we want it to be nice and natural. So this paint, I'm going to make sure my brush isn't totally covered. I want to cover it well, but I don't want it really thick and clogging it up. So I'm just going to roll my brush around like that to get it off. So again, plenty of paint is the key to keeping it moving. Just going to load up the end. And then we can just go in from the edge. And, you know, just going to make that branch shape. The thing with branches are they're just not perfect at all. Really not. They kind of bend and then you get little bits coming off. And in fact, I'm going to have to go small with my brush. I'll just see if I can reach one from here. There we go. When you're working very small, you have to go really small with your brushes to get them nice. So I'm just going to load up that one. Choose the tip, that's better. So yeah, so they do tend to bend and move quite a bit. And so I'm just going to look at, you know, the ones that come off the branches, you know, those little stems and twigs, before I start filling in with any other details that run down here. So we're going to knock that down. And it kind of comes over here, doesn't it, as well? There's this part of the another one coming down now. It was kind of like, it's been, I think a lot of it with the branches and has just been a little bit brave with it and just kind of making a commitment to make the mark. Some leaf shapes, but not leaf shapes, you know what I mean? Just kind of a, we know the leaves without having to do too much to them. And then, you know, some of these little offshoots of really thin little branches. But what I'm doing lightly is I'm holding my holding my brush a bit kind of not right close because that makes it really heavy, but a bit further away, and I'm just like lightly feathering it on. It's where we want actually less control when we're doing things that are a little bit more. So I'm just gonna join up all of these little feathery branches, twigs. They're really thin, aren't they? So it makes it just feel much lighter. So there's that one here as well. You know, it's really just you're only just touching the page, really. It's really nice. And then I'm going to pop in the, you know, this one that's still going over the top here. So it's like a big branch, isn't it? But with lots of little branches joining it. Just bringing it over. That one comes down. Line in the sky. And again, just some kind of just pressing on a few like little shapes of leaves so we get that suggestion that it is leaves, but we're not, you know, we don't know exactly what's there. And then again, we've got this lovely tree here, so that's going to, already it starts to make such a difference. So what I'm going to do is have a little look at where about this trunk's kind of going. There's like a few, like one, two kind of main trunks, and it all comes off, and then the other side of the tree as well here. So I'm just going to try and recreate what I can see. And the nice thing about it being a silhouette is, you know, you don't have to get all of the different colours of the tree and things like that in it. So we've just got lots of light, and again, nice and light. Don't hold it right at the bottom, otherwise it makes you quite heavy-handed with it. I'm going to follow this up. There. So we're just kind of following the main branches of the tree. It's always helpful to get those main ones in. And then you can do all the other little bits branching off from it. You don't get lost in it either, because that's very easy to get lost in it sometimes. And I'm just really right-handed with this. And then I might have even got an extra bit on it, but never mind. It's the beauty of trees. I think we've got the edge of another tree in there, which is nice. Coming in, so you get those as well coming in. And here, I've got this tree, you know, I've got some branches coming up here as well. And then we can do exactly what we've done at the top and just pop in all of those light little bits, just with the tip of your. So we kind of like just, oh, we can just see almost some leaves. I'm just kind of dabbing on really. Like if I can see something's going in a direction, I'll move it that way. I'm just very, very lightly adding on to make it nice and fine. Some of the work on here is quite fine, isn't it? Because the twigs are fine and there's not a lot of thickness of the foliage anymore. It's a draw dropping in this picture. You know, and again, we can kind of pop in with those lovely light branches and leaves that are coming off. And we just keep working on it like that, really, until you've just kind of got the shape of the tree, really. We're just building it. It's like Lego with a paintbrush. Just experimenting with just like little brush strokes. Yeah, just keep doing bits with it until you get to a point where you think, yeah, I think I'll stop with that. So that's the thing, is knowing where to stop with it as well, so you don't go on too far with it. And then, you know, there's the bit over the other side as well. You know, you can put as much or as little on of these things as you want to. And you can change the shape of anything as well if you think, don't really like that. I don't want to put that in, then you don't have to. You're the artist of your painting. I'm popping these in just because I think it's quite nice as a bit different as a frame. There we go. So, you know, you can have a little look and you can think, well, do I want to change anything? Don't want to change anything? If you're happy with it. Do I want to add any dark or lights or whatever? But it's nice just to have had a bit of an experiment really with looking at the different way light catches things. And you know, how it's reflected and just the peacefulness really, and you know how trees can really change a painting, whether they've got foliage on or not. It just really kind of transform what we're working on when we think, and how it all moves. So yes, it's a beautiful one to start back with, and it's been a real joy to come back to it and start with this stunning picture of the lakes. So I hope everybody's got on and enjoyed that first session, and I shall see everybody in a minute.